Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Like I promised today, I'm going to go through November 2022 Geography Paper 2. I'll do settlement. I think today and tomorrow I'll do settlement. Then on Saturday and Sunday I'll do economic geography. I'll do economic geography. Okay, let's start so that we don't waste time. I just want to say something. The approach that I usually use is I feel like if you can start using the past exam papers, it's more effective than reading the notes all the time, because when you're using the past exam papers, you know the type of questions to expect. It helps you also to improve your question interpretation. It also helps you to understand the application of different concepts using the different type of questioning that will be coming from the past exam papers. So that's why I want to encourage you, especially as you're about to write your final exams. I know now you are doing your preps, but as you are about to write your final exam, please try to start using the exam papers, the past exam papers. If you can use the past exam papers from, let's say, 2022 up to now, that is the prelim that you're writing now, I think you'll be ready to write an exam and to be able to pass with flying colors. Okay, let's go through the questions. Rural and urban settlements and the economic geography of South Africa. So I'm doing question 1.1 to 1.5. Let's go through question 1 now. Rural and urban settlements. Various options are provided as possible answers to the following questions. Choose the answer and write only the letter A to D next to the question numbers 1.1.1 to 1.1.8 in the answer book, e.g. 1.1.9D. So that's one thing that you need also to take note of whenever you are writing an exam. Go through the instructions, learn to follow instructions, because instructions are part of the examination. Okay, rural settlements are associated with. So let's see the option that we are given here. We have got a primary, secondary, tertiary, and quaternary. I think if you think of rural settlements, what comes to your mind? What comes to your mind when you think of the rural settlements? Obviously, what happens is more to do with primary activities, because that's where you've got your farming. I think I'm talking about forestry, I'm talking about fishing, I'm talking about mining. It involves the extraction of raw materials from the ground. It's unifunctional. So mostly the rural communities, settlements, they are associated with primary activities. They are associated with primary activities, which means that's the correct answer. When you talk about the secondary activities, we are now talking about the conversion or the transformation of raw materials or unprocessed materials to semi-finished and finished products. So under secondary industry, we are looking at things such as processing. That's where processing is taking place. We're looking at things such as manufacturing. We are also looking at things such as construction. So that's what is covered under secondary secondary activities. Because basically we are looking at the manufacturing, the processing, construction. That's what falls under secondary, which means there is now transformation of our raw materials into semi-finished or finished products. So it means when we talk about secondary, when we talk about tertiary, we are now talking about the multifunctional, which makes it urban settlements. That's what is urban settlements mostly associated with. Then when you talk about quaternary, these are specialized service, research and development. This is what falls under quaternary. These are the 4 activities that we have got: primary, secondary, tertiary, and quaternary. But on this question, your answer is primary, because rural communities, think about what happens within a farmstead. 3, what happens within a hamlet, okay? Rural hamlet, what happens within a village. So mostly there is something to do with primary activities. That can be part of your agriculture, that it can be part of your mining, that can be part of forestry, that can be part of fishing. Basically, we are talking about rural communities. What is the most economic, more dominant economic activities there is coming from primary activities, which is mostly the extraction of raw materials from the earth's surface. So that is primary then. A dispersed settlement pattern develops when there is, okay, when you talk about the patterns, the most common ones are dispersed or isolated. It's the same thing, or the nucleated. So that should come to your mind even before you respond to the question. When you read this dispersed settlement, okay, when you talk about the pattern, of course, we're talking about dispersed or isolated settlement. When you talk about the nucleated, okay, when you talk about dispersed, obviously, when you look in terms of the building density, they are far away from each other. You have one house here, you have another one there, you have got another one. That's dispersed, they are far away from each other. Then there's another one which is nucleated. Obviously, think about, okay, the buildings around a water point. Let's say in that area there isn't much water, it's dry, and you find a lot of buildings around in that water point. Obviously, that's what makes it nucleated. It can be nucleated or it can be clustered. So it means what I'm saying is simply saying is assuming that this is a water source, then we've got people having all their houses surrounding this water point. This is nucleated, okay? That's another settlement pattern. Or it can be, we have got people here, then we have got a lot of people here, then we have got a lot of people there. That's what we mean by clustered. So basically we have got dispersed, which is also known as isolated. Then we've got nucleated. We also have clustered. I think you understand what I've said from my explanation. So the correct answer, the dispersed settlement, one dominant water source. Obviously, if there's one dominant water source, we are likely to have more people staying around that water source, which makes it nucleated. So A is not correct. In abundance of water, of course, this one can also be correct because water is not scarce. That's what makes it dispersed, because it's enough. Okay. Then a narrow river valley, that's not correct. A communal ownership of land, that's not correct as well. So the correct answer there is B. An advantage of rural nucleated settlement, a rural nucleated settlement, okay, I've already explained through the illustration that I was using here, okay. An advantage of rural nucleated settlement is sharing of farm equipment. Remember, you are living close to each other, so there's likely to be sharing, okay. Large commercial plots, no, that's not correct. Making independent decisions, no. Okay, because you are staying together. Obviously, there's sharing, even in terms of decision making. You help each other in decision making large profits. So it's likely the correct answer there is sharing of farm equipment, because you are living together, living in a nucleated settlement. You are not dispersed. If you are dispersed, that's when we're talking about making independent decisions or making large profits, because maybe you have got large plots of land where you can actually make profits from. But here you share even the profits that you have. When you are in a nuclear settlement, you are likely to share because you are working together. You understand? So there is sharing of farm equipment. That is the advantage. So the important thing that you should take note of is the advantage. This is what should guide you when you are looking for the correct answer. Okay, 1.1.4 is the location of settlement in relation to the surrounding area. So from the option that we have, gap, that's not correct. You understand, sometimes we've got settlements that are maybe located maybe between mountains. That's what a gap is. Site where the settlement is located, this is not correct as well. Breaching point, this is not correct. Okay, the correct answer there is your situation. Is your situation, which is D. Remember the difference between your situation, the location of a settlement in relation to its surroundings. They can be close to a road, close to the market. That's the situation. So the situation of is a location of a settlement in relation to the surrounding area. So that's your answer is D. Okay. So these other concepts, they just put them just to confuse you, but what it should guide you is the location of a settlement in relation to its surrounding area. That's a situation. If it's a site, it's where the settlement is located. Okay. Let's move on to number 1.1.5. A dry point settlement is located dash water because water is, okay. Dry point settlement, okay. Let's find up now. Dry point settlement, obviously in this area there's a threat of my floods, because so what they do is a dry point settlement is located, it can be far from, okay, far from, that is number 1.1.5. It can be far from, okay, far from the water, because the water is a threat, because there can be a problem of floods. Here it's correct, but here now is what makes it wrong. Here it can be near, because obviously they are far from the water, because they are okay, trying to make sure that they won't be affected by the floods. Near and scarce is also not correct. So your correct answer there is what? Is B. Far from dry point, moving away from the wet point because of the fear maybe of floods and things like that, of course. So that's what happens. So it's far from, and the threat, water is a threat. Why? Because of the flooding that I have talked about. Okay. Then 1.1.6, the sketch refers to a shaped settlement. So you need also to take cognizance or to know the difference between a settlement pattern and when you talk about the shape of settlement. When you talk about patterns, we are talking about the density of buildings. That's what it's all about. Is it dispersed? Is it nucleated? But now when you talk about the shape of the settlement, we are now talking about the alignment of these buildings, okay? Like here, what shape do we have here? Okay? What shape is assumed as a result? What shape is assumed as a result of the settlements being in a certain place? So that's basically what we are talking about. We're looking at the buildings. Of course, if they are following a road, it becomes a linear. This one can be more like a T-junction. So that's basically what we are talking about. It can also be a crossroad. These are some of the things that you can talk about when you talk about the shape of settlement. Okay, the sketch below refers to a 1.1.6. You can see the roads are crossing each other here, but we have got settled, we have got buildings, so that's what makes it a crossroad. Okay, that's what makes it a crossroad. If it's round, which means maybe there is a water source here like a lake, then we have got the buildings surrounding that place. That's what makes it round. Okay, if it's a semicircle, maybe it's close to a coast. So close to a coast, then we have got the settlement. That's what makes it more like a semicircle. So when it's linear, it means, like, say for instance, we have a road, then we have got buildings that are forming along the road. Like, I'll give you an example. The reason why we have got Egypt of today is because of farming that started along Nile River. So during that time, we find that some of the houses were built along, because that's where they were practicing farming. There was availability of water. There were also fertile soils. There were also grass for the grazing of their animals. So the settlement that formed, the shape that was assumed was linear because it was following the road, which is the Nile River. That's basically what I'm talking about. If it follows the road, it becomes also linear. So the correct way there is crossroad. You can see this road are crossing each other. That's crossroad. Then the circular shape of the segment below is influenced by that's 1.1.7. You can see I was talking about a lake, then you've got settlements around. Of course, you can't say coastline, because coastline is likely to give you a semicircular. Okay, so here you can see there's the water source lake here. You have got some clues just to guide you. That's a lake, so which means it's influenced by the lake. That is your A. The following physical factors determine the site of a settlement. So what you should highlight here is physical factors. Physical factors. So from what you are given, what things are physical factors? Okay, you can see here is your relief. You can see there is your relief. What else is a physical factor? It's your fertile soils. Accessibility to the market is not, of transport is not a physical factor. Distance to market is not a physical factor. So where do we have 3 and 4? 3 and 4, which means your answer here is what? Is D. So that's what you're supposed to do. You have to be attentive to detail. Make sure you read to understand. Do not rush. Let's move on to the next one. Then we have here, choose the correct word or term in the column B that matches the statement in column A. Write only X, Y, or Z next to the question numbers 1.2.1, 1.2.7 in answer book, 1.2.8Y. It is very important for you to read the question and also read to understand. Okay, so the first question there is process whereby the increasing percentage of the country's population is concentrated in the urban areas. Obviously, this is when we talk about what? About urbanization. This we talk about urbanization. When you talk about the level, we are talking, okay, when you talk about urbanization, we are talking about urbanization. Basically, what we are saying is, when we talk about urbanization, this is the whereby increasing percentage of the country's population is concentrated in the urban areas. That's what urbanization is all about. What guides you is then word increasing percentage of the country's population is concentrated in the urban area, which is your urbanization. Which is your urbanization. I'm going to repeat it again just to make sure that you won't forget it. I'm saying the process whereby increasing percentage of country's population is staying in the urban area. Of course, that is what we call urbanization, which means we have got more people staying in the urban areas. Okay, that's basically what we are talking about. Okay, when you talk about the level of urbanization, we are talking about the percentage of people living in urban areas compared to the rural areas. That's what the level of urbanization is. We are now talking about the percentage of people living in urban areas compared to the rural areas. There is a comparison. That's what makes it level of urbanization. Okay, so the correct answer there is urbanization. Let's move on to the next one. Increasing in the number of people living in urban areas. Increasing in the number of people living in the urban areas. Obviously, there used to be a certain number of people living in urban areas, but now the number is increasing. Obviously, what comes to your mind is your urban growth. Because we are saying the number is now increasing. This urban growth, increasing the number of people living in the urban areas. It can be due to natural causes, like we are looking at your birth rate minus your death rate, or it can be just because of rural to urban migration. That can also be the reason behind urban growth, that is the increase in the number of people living in urban areas. Okay. Then when you talk about the rate of urbanization, this rate of urbanization, it refers to the speed urbanization occurred over time. Is it occurring at a faster rate or at a slower rate? You can have a question that asks you to comment on the rate of urbanization. Is it increasing? Is it decreasing? Is it decreasing or increasing? Or is it occurring at a faster or a slower rate? That's what falls under your rate of urbanization. Then process whereby people move from urban areas to surrounding rural areas. Okay, people move from urban areas. I want you to take note of here. Urban areas to surrounding rural areas, 1.2.3, which means your answer is counter-urbanization. That's your counter-urbanization. Okay, that's your counter-urbanization. That's what it is, which means now we are used to people moving from rural to urban, but now they are moving now from urban areas to the surrounding rural areas. That is counter-urbanization. But the concept that we are used is to rural to urban migration. Why? Because mostly urban areas have got better service as compared to rural areas, but where we have got the opposite happening now, counter-urbanization. That's what it's all about. Okay. Okay, when you talk about centralization, obviously we are talking about services being found at one central point, okay? But when we want to make sure that it goes also to the periphery, that becomes decentralization, but it has nothing to do with the movement of people from urban areas to rural, surrounding rural areas. So answer is counter-urbanization. Then 1.2.4, increase in the actual physical size of the urban area. So that's what we refer urban area. That is urban expansion. 1.2.4. That is urban expansion. That is urban expansion. That's what is called urban expansion. That's urban expansion. Okay. When you talk about urban hierarchy now, we are looking at the ranking of urban areas according to the criteria of size, the number of functions, the degree of specialization of the function. That's what urban hierarchy is all about. It is the ranking of urban areas according to the criteria of size, number of function, and the degree of specialization in them, specialization of the functions. That's what urban hierarchy is. So the correct answer there is urban expansion. Then 1.2.5, unplanned spread of urban areas. Unplanned spread of urban areas, okay? Unplanned spread of urban areas. We refer to that as the urban sprawl. This is formless development of urban areas. This is formless development of urban areas. So that's what we call what? Urban sprawl. That's what we call urban sprawl. Okay? Urban decay, think about the zone of decay, which is more like a transition zone on the outskirts of the CBD. That's what it's all about. But the correct answer is the urban sprawl. That's what it is. Then number 2, 1.2.6. Decreasing number of people living in rural areas. Decreasing number of people living in rural areas. Obviously, we are talking now about the rural depopulation, which is caused by rural to urban migration. Okay, it is caused by this concept of rural urban migration, but we call it rural depopulation, which means the number of people that are staying or living in rural areas, they are decreasing because they are migrating, they are moving from rural to the urban area. That is your rural depopulation. Then 1.2.7. Arrangement of settlements in an area from the smallest to the largest. Remember, I was talking about it now. That is your hierarchy. That is your hierarchy, which is the arrangement of settlements in an area from the smallest to the largest. We are now talking now from the farmsteads, your hamlet, your village, your town, your city, your metro, your conurbation, your megapolis. Okay, the arrangement of settlements in an area from the smallest to the largest. That's what we call hierarchy. That's what we call urban hierarchy. Okay, that's what we call a hierarchy. Remember, I said it's the ranking of urban areas according to the criteria of size, the number of functions, and the degree of specialization of the functions. That's what it's all about. Okay. Okay, I'll end here, then I'll start a new video on 1.3. Thank you.